In Washington, Marcia Smith, a space agency analyst. Ms. Smith, thank you for being with us. What's the future of the American humans in space program now that we have suffered this tragedy today?
Well, of course, everyone is very appropriately focused right now on the human tragedy that is unfolding. But there is a very practical aspect of this as well. Columbia was one of the 4 space shuttle orbiters, but now there are only 3 left. And the space shuttle's mission for the foreseeable future is to support the space station program. We do have 3 astronauts aboard the space station right now, and the space shuttle's job really is to take more segments of the space station up into orbit, to rotate the crews. They rotate every 4 to 6 months, and to take up supplies and to bring back the results of scientific experiments. So from a practical standpoint, I think everyone's going to be looking at the human spaceflight program and try to determine what do we do now.
Ma'am, let me ask you, after the Challenger explosion back in 1986, there was talk then again of the space program going away. What do you think at that time turned the tide and made Americans and made the U.S. government say to itself, you know, we need to keep this up?
I actually don't remember talk of the space station going away at the time of Challenger. In fact, I think everyone rallied behind NASA and the space program at the time, and the public seemed very supportive of spending the money that it would take to build a replacement orbiter, which was Endeavour. Of course, one of the differences now is that NASA had in the pipeline at the manufacturer then structural spares in order to help them build another orbiter, because they'd been thinking of building one and then decided not to. And I'm not aware that there are any structural spares now to build an additional orbiter. So NASA's going to have to look at its future plans, how it's going to continue building the space station and servicing the space station with 3 orbiters instead of 4. That's a very practical aspect of what happened today.
Yeah. How much do these vessels cost? And I think what I hear you saying is it's going to be a tough sell from here on out. Tougher sell, I should say.
I don't know if it's going to be a tough sell. I still think the American people are very supportive of the space program, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them once again rally behind NASA. But from a financing standpoint, as I recall it, Endeavour cost about $2 billion, and that was in 1986. So what it would cost today, starting from scratch, I really don't know what that number would be.
Let me ask you this. I have been hoping, and I have some good reason to believe that a lot of other Americans have been hoping that in my lifetime we might see an American on the planet Mars. Does or does not what happened today make that unlikely, given there's going to have to be an investigation, given we have to decide whether we want to spend the money? It's one of those things, you know, we dream of putting an American on Mars someday, somehow, some way. Now, is there any likelihood it'll happen in our lifetime?
Well, I think that the shuttle program is going to have to investigate, find out what happened. With the Challenger tragedy, it took 32 months before the shuttle was up and running again, and then the human spaceflight program continued. And it's possible, probably even likely, that something similar will happen this time. As far as sending humans to Mars, NASA did not have such a program because it is so expensive, and the current head of NASA emphasizes that there are certain barriers that you have to overcome in terms of how humans react to weightlessness and in terms of propulsion, how quickly you can get there and back. And he wanted to spend some time investigating those aspects of possibly sending humans to Mars before he ever made such a commitment. So I'm not sure a commitment to that was in the offing anyway. So whether this delays it for 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, I don't know. And whether it will happen in any of our lifetimes, I think, is an open question.
Thank you, Marcia Smith. I, for one, will continue to dream of that. Now, for those of you who are just joining us, and for those of you who have been with us, we remind you that at 1 o'clock, about 9 or 10 minutes from now, NASA has scheduled a news conference in which Sean O'Keefe, who's the director of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, is scheduled to appear. Yes, NASA had said it hoped to have a news conference at 11:30 Eastern Time. It just wasn't able to do that because, understandably, NASA wants to deal as much as possible in facts. Also, there was the first order of business, that is, breaking the news officially and formally to the families of the brave astronauts and conveying the sympathies and the respect of a nation to the families of these astronauts. All of that understandably had to be taken care of before NASA can get this news conference together. We are hoping and believing that there will be a news conference in about 8 minutes from now. The flag at half-staff near the shuttle launch position in Florida. John Roberts reporting earlier that the flags around the White House and the flag over the White House has been lowered to half-staff out of respect of these 7 astronauts who have died. Now, they're gone. That's a direct quote from a senior U.S. official. This official said that the Space Shuttle Columbia is, quote, gone, and that there's no hope for the 7-member crew. A NASA news conference now scheduled for 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Mission Control in Houston. Keep in mind the launch was in Florida, but Mission Control is at the Johnson Space Center just outside of Houston. Mission Control lost contact with the shuttle just minutes before it was to land this morning at 9:16 Eastern Time over at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. But as we now know from this amateur video taken, this is what happened to the shuttle. It was just a speck way up there, 200,000 miles up plus. Then the speck enlarged, then it became literally a ball of fire, and then a number of balls of fire as it crashed to Earth. NASA immediately declared an emergency, scrambled rescue crews, and then there began to be reports of debris. We showed you earlier the debris from a large piece of scorched earth near Fort Worth, Texas. Now in southeast Texas, in the Nacogdoches, Texas area, widespread reports of debris. NASA believes debris may be found as far over as Louisiana, maybe Arkansas. None has been reported there. We spoke with the Nacogdoches city manager, Victoria LaFollette, who told us that a considerable amount of debris has fallen in her city, and she said there are pieces on the airport runway and in people's backyards in Nacogdoches. These pictures are from the Fort Worth area, aerials taken by our CBS affiliate in Dallas, near Fort Worth. So it's pretty obvious that what happened is that the shuttle began to break up in North Texas over roughly the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And this is a picture of it taken from a satellite. This is a meteorological satellite, but you can see encircled in the left-hand part of your screen that it began somewhere over the Dallas-Fort Worth area. What happened to it, no one can say. It may be a long time, if ever anyone can say. But this gives you the high shot. Then here's the amateur video of the shuttle coming down to Earth and crashing to Earth. And
baby's cooking.
At the altitude and speed at which it was breaking up, debris is expected to be found over a very wide area of Texas and possibly Louisiana and possibly even other places. It's so stunning to see this that the imperative is just to be quiet for a moment. So looking at this amateur video, it's no wonder that residents of Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas all say that as they were out early this morning to watch the Space Shuttle Columbia come over their area, they saw flames, then heard a window rattling, door shaking boom, kind of muffled boom, early this morning, about the time the Space Shuttle Columbia broke up on its way to trying to land at Cape Canaveral, Florida. One eyewitness, John Fiorito of Carrollton, just north of Dallas, said it was like a car hitting the house or a big explosion. It shook that much. James Milford, the owner of a barbershop, Milford's Barbershop around the square in Nacogdoches, said it's all over Nacogdoches. He described little pieces, some parts of machinery, some pieces about 3 feet wide, said this eyewitness, left from this crash of the shuttle. We believe we're about 4 minutes, possibly less now, from the start of this NASA news conference. If it goes off as scheduled, certainly we'd understand if it slipped some. There probably, Russ, no doubt some people, even at this late hour, what, 4 hours after the crash, are only now beginning to be aware of what happened. And for others who may have heard about it earlier, just beginning to sink in what's happened.
And you said it earlier.
7 brave astronauts.
When that U.S. official said they're gone, that was pretty official. Hit that.